wanted to bring up, I posted yesterday my stories about someone had reached out to me about her return to run and had some leakage after she was cleared by her physio to run. And one of the controversial things that kind of came up was the screening that this person had gone through. And this is in another country, by the way. So it has nothing related to insurance. Isn't it funny? United States insurance. That she had gone through a stress test. And I was like, I have no idea what that was. And basically it was like, drink a boatload of fluid and then 30 minutes later, jump and see if you leak. And then the other one was, can you hold a Kegel for a minute? And if you can do those things, and what was interesting is it was those things, and then she was also given the 2019 UK guidelines for postpartum return to run, which are like really like drastically different than that. And I don't know why she was given that, maybe just like to self-digest, I don't know. But anyway, she'd gone for a run and she's like, oh, should I wait longer? I was like, wow, this is a much bigger question. So first of all, I think it's important to, because we don't have standard screening for return to run, we don't have a standard time frame. Like we have the recommendations from the UK guidelines, understanding that that's like extrapolated. It's not like randomized control trial. This is, and a lot of this too, again, it's, there's a lot of factors that it's never going to be an RCT. But how do you make the best clinical decision? And for me, I think I will have clients that I run through a readiness screen, and maybe they're a little off on jumping and, you know, things like that. And we could just add some drills. But if we go out outside the clinic and do like a 90-second run, they're fine. I'm like, okay, that's a good likelihood. So I will always try and run with a client. Abby's trying to be a part of the action here. I will always try and run with a client for their first run. I won't ever let them do it alone, because if something like that happens, like with that woman that had reached out where she's like, I started leak, I didn't know what to do. You're kind of like a deer in headlights. So have someone go with you. I really slow down their pace, because that's the other thing too, is in our head, we're going to pick up right where we left off. We don't realize how fast we're running. And sometimes that speed, because you don't have the power yet, you don't have the strength to go that fast, you're going to actually end up in more trouble. But if you ran a little bit, a little more zone 2-ish, a little slower, like painfully slow, you might actually be just fine. So my goal is, one, for that person to have as little symptoms as possible on that first trial of a minute or so. And they, you know, but screening wise, again, like I want them to have been able to walk at least 40 minutes, no issues. I want them to, you know, clear as much of the readiness screen as possible. Or if they haven't, you know, I'll run with them and then it's reasonably okay, but we have a plan to address those deficits. But the other thing that I do with clients is, the first time you run, sometimes your brain and your body are kind of like a deer in headlights, because especially if you've never run with boobs full of milk before, or you feel things, you know, moving in places that they did not move before, and jiggles and bellies and things like that, because that's real. Your natural tendency initially is like deer in headlights. And I've had this happen with screening items too, for impact drills. Like the first time you do it, it's like, nope, that's not going to work. And if you just quit there, you think you're basically screwed. But sit, rest, try it again. And if you do it again, sometimes it's actually better. So with that first running trial, so it's a jog walk, I'll do 1 minute on, 4 minutes off. We'll do 4 rounds and then finish up with a 5-minute cool down. We already did a 5-minute warm up, all walking. And I'm like, you know what, if something happens in that time, just finish it off with walking. And then a couple days later, let's try the same thing again. And here's the thing, it's either going to be great, it's not going to be any different, or it's going to be worse. And that will give you more information. One data set really doesn't tell you that much. So I will have people do the same workout or the same ratio of jog walk, usually like 3 different times. And here's the thing, even if you're asymptomatic, that's still time under that task. That's still time under gravity doing that work. You're still building up. We're not going to change any other variables during that time. And it's a really intentional, methodical way that is not a couch to 5K. I dare you to find a couch to 5K that takes symptoms into account, that's so methodical about rest, like very clear on dosing. Like most couch to 5Ks I see, they're like 1 minute on, 1 minute off, and it's not enough rest. So I think if you go at intentionally, then you can pull information if you do have symptoms and be like, all right, which round did you have leakage in? Was it in the beginning? Was it later when you were tired? How was it the second time that you tried it? Was it better? Oh yeah, it was great, beautiful. Oh, it wasn't, it was the same, or oh, it was worse. Like we can gather information from that and problem solve. So I don't know that the issue necessarily is the screening, how you get back to running. But once you start going, what is that framework? What is that framework to start? Is there a rest component? And what's kind of the progression? And is it methodical enough and intentional enough that there's not so many variables that it makes it a nightmare to problem solve if there are issues? So this woman's kind of like screening items aside, like holding a Kegel for 1 minute, I don't really know how that equates to running at all, because it's not like you Kegel the whole time. Your pelvic floor is functioning like a dimmer switch. It's not at all like a static Kegel. And then I feel like making somebody throw back a bunch of fluid and then making them do star jumps is really just torture. That's just wrong. And again, what does that prove? And most women aren't going to do that anyway. They're going to pee right before they go for a run. So why are we doing this, right? Why would you start there? Why are we starting with setting moms up to fail? So big picture, I am always setting my moms up to underdose, so we're not blasting through and they're having symptoms. I want them to underdose. I want them to have success every time. And if something does come up, they know what to do and they come back to me, and then we problem solve and we have a plan moving forward. They're not just like, oh no, I had leakage, now I just have to wait. Because guess what? Waiting, you're still going to have the same damn problem unless you problem solve correctly. So in summary, yeah, her screening items, no clue what that was all about. I don't think that translates at all. But that being said, regardless of how you get to return to run, I think you need to have a really intentional, methodical kind of pathway forward and a way to problem solve those issues in a very intentional kind of way. So if you have questions about that, if you're trying to navigate that DIY, or if you're a physio and you're trying to, get better at it, just hop in my DMs. Happy to answer any questions about kind of the stuff that we do. Or if you're looking for somebody who's running informed, that does pelvic floor work, happy to help you find somebody as well. So stay warm. It's freezing. That's why I'm in here and not walking the dog.